Good morning, and welcome to the Lone Star Weekly Business Hour. Your host, Rick Schissler, is a Silver Fox advisor who personally has over 40 years of experience as a serial entrepreneur. So sit back, pull out your pad and pencil, and get ready to take notes as we join Rick Schissler in his Lone Star Weekly Business Hour.
Good morning and welcome to the Weekly Business Hour. This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor. Thank you for joining us for another version of our show this week. I've got some great news and business tips I hope you can use in your business even today. We have a wonderful guest in the studio that we'll be talking with after the news segment who's going to talk to us about starting a business from beginning to end. So we're kind of going back to basics, and I think that's a wonderful thing because we all need to be reminded of where we started and came from. So first of all, I'd like to do a little bit of a shout out or a call out to one of the area nonprofits, and that's America Heroes First Foundation. This is a foundation that is actually nationwide, but it was founded right here in our own backyard by a friend of mine, Dave Bryant. Dave, basically the last 3 years, has given up his work and dedicated himself and his treasure to starting this foundation, and it's a foundation for veterans. There are a lot of them out there, but this one's a little bit different. What this one does is that when you donate through your payroll deduction plan at the business company you work at, 100% of that money goes directly to the vet. Goes to the vet or their family or whatever the particular need is. And I learned this weekend a little bit more about this organization because they held a gathering of friends and supporters, and it was very telling to me to understand better the condition that our vets are in. And I'm talking about vets that go back to World War II, Korea, Vietnam, not just the recent conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq. Of course, there are a lot of those. But it apparently has been calculated that even with all the government support and public charity support, that we fall every year about $1 billion short on supporting the vets that need help. And this is particularly medical help, but there are other types of help that they need from time to time or their families need. So Dave found this in his heart to start something that would deliver 100% of the money directly to these people through various organizations. So he started this organization, and now he's gotten a lot of the top military, retired military people involved, and it's spreading like wildfire. So my hat's off to him. And if you get a chance, go to www.ahff.org and check this organization out. And if you have a business or you work for a company, this is something great to add to your employees' opportunity to give through a payroll deduction, whether it's $1 a paycheck or $2 or $5. These folks are doing a lot of good, and the money, like I said, is going directly to the people who need it. It's not being lost in the shuffle through an organization or a big payroll or something like that. Let's move on to the business news and tips you can use. Some interesting news items I came across this past week, and one of them has been out there brewing, if you will, for a while. But let me tell you something. After I read this article, I said, boy, it is really on top of us. And it was an article, it was in the Sunday Wall Street Journal by Jennifer Waters, entitled, "Prepare to Hang Up the Phone Forever." There's been a movement afoot for, probably 10 years or longer that I've been aware of it, and probably longer than that, to eliminate the use of the old copper phone line, or POTS lines, P-O-T-S lines that we're all used to. In fact, they've been around for over 100 years. And this has been the basis of our telephone network here in the United States, but it's going away. And in this article, it pointed out that in the state of Texas, it went through all these different states, that apparently it's already been approved in the next 3 years that the major carriers like AT&T and others are not required to provide service of the POTS lines or copper lines to individuals and businesses. So the chances are very strong that your carrier, whoever they are, the next few years will be asking or offering you alternatives, and eventually they're going to say no. This kind of came to the forefront after Hurricane Sandy. If you recall the hurricane that went up the East Coast last year, it knocked out a lot of electrical and phone lines, and Verizon, who is a primary carrier in that area, went back into some of the small communities and said, look, we'd like not to have to rebuild this infrastructure that's been in place for years. It's very expensive to do it, to string that wire, and we have some alternatives. And a couple of those alternatives, one is the obvious one, is wireless. Many people, if not all, everyone I know, I'll put it that way, has a cell phone. And that's one way you can communicate. but it's not practical for everyone. As we know, there are certain parts of the country where cell is not available. And the other way is through the internet. And again, internet service is not available yet, really, to all the country. So there's still some question marks out there. But through the internet and voice over IP type phone systems, the changes look like they're going to have to be made. And my point to you in business is, what will the impact be on your business? And I think it's time to start thinking about that, because if in the state of Texas in 3 years the carriers are allowed to stop providing that service, then that probably means, because of the cost that I saw that this service is, that you're going to see it disappear fairly quickly, or as they would say, sooner than later. So my encouragement to you, particularly in your business, that if you have a phone system and whatnot, you need to check into the alternatives, see what it's going to take to upgrade, or in, I think, many cases, replace your existing system. Now, again, I'm not advocating you run out today and do something to make that change, but I know a lot of the systems that have been available over the last 5 years, telephone systems, have had the alternate or had the alternative built into the system where you could switch from an existing POTS-type supplied line, copper line, could switch to voice over IP if the need arose. So obviously some of the phone manufacturers and distributors were thinking ahead of the curve, and they could see this coming. But you need to be sure your vendors, your customers, your order-taking system, all your communication systems that rely on a phone, that you take this into consideration and do some planning. I'm familiar with some organizations where, for example, the sales force, all they have are cell phones. And that's the only way they get communicated with, even in the office. If a call comes in over the copper line, it's transferred to their cell phone. So some companies have already eliminated a landline phone for their salespeople, even within the confines of the office. So there's a lot of things to do. But I think you've got to make your company ready to switch, get ready for it, take some time, don't be in a hurry, don't be in a rush. Because you can imagine when this gets announced, how many thousands of individuals and companies are going to be scrambling around, and I'm sure they'll give an adequate time of a year or two, but they'll be scrambling to understand the choices, and it's better to research it. And again, I'm not advocating making the change yet, but it's time to start thinking through it. And again, in some cases, it may be time to make the change. You always want to be ahead of the curve if you can. The second thing I'd like to talk about that was in the news this past week, and I say in the news, it's an item that's on everybody's plate in every business out there, and that's pricing. I have personally found in working with clients that raising prices or setting a proper price for my goods and services is one of the hardest things that people seem to deal with, particularly new businesses or small businesses. They find it very hard to set the price and sometimes even harder to raise their price. And it's a difficult thing to do, I think, primarily because they're unsure, first, of the value of their business or service. They don't know what the customer perceives of how valuable. In other words, if I raise the price to X, will I lose a customer or customers? The other thing I think you see with people in small businesses is they're just not familiar with, the statistics or what their competition is really doing. What are they charging on an apples-to-apples basis for the same products or services? A lot of this, of course, is due to the size of business. They just can't afford that kind of information. They can't afford to have people on their payroll that keep track of the market. But that, of course, is the nature of small business. Sometimes we just have to fly by the seat of our pants. But I think the main thing that I'd like to convey to you today, if you're in a small business, own a small business, thinking about starting a business, is don't be afraid to charge a fair price. And I think you have to do the work to determine the value of your business. If your business is a leader in your industry, in your area, and your phone rings off the wall and people are trying to do business with you, and you're very confident and you feel in your heart of hearts, as they would say, that your business offers a great product or service, then you need to be able to raise prices. Because one of the main things that I noticed in the economy, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years, is prices have crept up. in a lot of ways. I think I probably personally notice it more in the restaurant business when I go out to have lunch with a business associate or whatnot. Lunch prices. I'm talking about restaurant prices more so than fast food. But even if you studied fast food, you've noticed increases. A lot of times they'll change the product that they're selling and kind of raise the price and kind of hide it with that product. But I think that if you go into restaurants today and you look at what you're paying for lunch, take people to lunch, it shows itself. The cost of food, of course, itself has been going up 2 or 3% a year. We can read about that. But I believe that certain costs in businesses have been creeping up, and perhaps they've moved up so slowly that we as business people haven't noticed it. I mean, the cost of gasoline's gone up. That's obvious. But what about the products that you use to build your products? What about the products that you use in your service? What about the cost of your labor? Have you really figured that, over the last few years, it hasn't necessarily been a big jump, but there have been small increases here and there, yet I'm still charging the same price for my services I charged 2, 3, 5 years ago. And at some point, your financial statements are going to tell the story. But as we all know, financial statements typically are delivered after the fact. We look at them, we made a profit, we're happy, we hear about tough times, and we move on. As long as we've got a +1, if you will, instead of a loss, -1, then we're happy. But I think pricing is something that you need to look at right now. And a couple of tips I'd like to offer you based on an article that I picked up from Entrepreneur Council, an article that was published in Fox Small Business. A couple ideas. First of all, and I've been talking about it, evaluate the value of your products and services. And do take a little snapshot of 1 or 2 of your competitors if you can and see what they're charging. Again, I know you can't run a whole market study. You can't afford to do some of the things the big guys do. They have computer rooms and people that are dedicated. The big grocery stores like H-E-B, Kroger, they know their prices backwards and forwards. I'm not advocating that, but every once in a while we've got to pay attention to what our competition is charging. But we also need to make sure our competition is selling a product or service that is apples to apples to our product and service. Second thing I'd like to offer is try it on just certain products or services. Pick a couple, 3, put an increase in there, and I'm not talking about the ones you never sell. Try it on some that you sell, but maybe it's not your biggest items, and see what happens. See if you get any feedback. See if any of your sales drop off. And if it doesn't, then you know that you're allowed a price increase. The third thing, and I think this is most important, be able to explain why. If someone says, well, why did you raise my price on that monthly service or on that product? Why has it gone up? Have that explanation already figured out in your own mind, because you justify it not only to the customer, but as you work through a price increase, you justify it to yourself. It's not just something you threw a dart at the wall and hit a number and decided to raise it to it. So that's something I think you have to do. And again, I think in summation of that you've always got to be able to raise your price and cut cost, because the cost of your business are always going up gradually, if not in big jumps. So I warn you, because down the road, all of a sudden you're in the positive, you're showing some profit, and then it shifts to the negative. You've cut all the costs you can, and you're kind of in a bind because you've been charging that same price for so long. So don't get caught there. The last item I'd like to touch on is I started last week talking about the 8 business principles that last a lifetime. This was something that Jeff Hayden put out there on LinkedIn, and I thought it was great. And last week we started with the first item, and that was focus on collecting knowledge. Is one of the first principles, the first principle that lasts a lifetime. And at the end of that one, Jeff said, continue to strive to gain more experience. More experience and more knowledge is the second best way to succeed. What's the best way to succeed? And that's to focus on collecting knowledgeable people. I like the word collecting. But the idea is that you surround yourself. Make an effort to reach out through networking and whatnot to meet and know and associate with smart people. Because if you work hard, on getting smarter, one way, and probably the easiest way to do that, quite frankly, is work harder on getting smarter people around you. And one of the ways you can do this, and a little bit self-serving, I apologize, but find a mentor. put an advisory board together. That's a direct way to surround yourself with smarter people. A mentor obviously can work with you one-on-one. An advisory board can help you keep your business in line, and hopefully you choose smart people to be on that board. So our second of 8 principles that last a lifetime, focus on surrounding, or as Jeff says, collecting more knowledgeable people around you. We're going to take a short break now, ladies and gentlemen, and when we come back, we're going to have a nice chat, I hope, here with our guest, Sergio Martinez of Sergio's Landscaping. So please stay with us, and we'll be back with you in just a moment.
Have you ever wandered around a parking lot trying to look like you actually know where you parked? Then you'll love the Mark and Cindy Show. If buying toilet paper with aloe vera is the most exciting thing you're going to do today, then you'll love the Mark and Cindy Show. Even if you haven't tweeted, you'll still love the Mark and Cindy Show.
How about twerking?
Ew, that was one step over the line, Mark.
Well, you said toilet paper.
Look, we want listeners to tune in to the Mark and Cindy Show at 10 o'clock every weekday morning here on Lone Star Internet Radio.
The Mark and Cindy Show, it's like visiting with your best friends for coffee, except we will never stiff you with a check.
And one of us always knows what she's talking about.
Well, okay, but it's still called the Mark and Cindy Show. You know that.
We'll see. The Mark and Cindy Show. Tune in to Lone Star Radio every weekday morning at 10 o'clock.
Did you know there are over 800 abused children in foster care in Montgomery County? Will you help make a difference? I'm Susan, a volunteer with Casa Child Advocates of Montgomery County. April is Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month. Casa Child Advocates trains and supports volunteers to be the voice of children who have been removed from their home because of abuse or neglect. We need volunteers just like you to speak up for these children. To learn more about becoming an advocate, please visit CasaSpeaksForKids.com or call 936-441-5437.
SPCA PetSnap of Montgomery County is a 501c3 all-volunteer-based rescue and adoption organization with a no-kill policy for healthy and adoptable animals. Our goals are fourfold: to rescue and rehabilitate homeless animals, to provide a safe haven for the animals until a suitable adoption or foster care home is found or until they are reunited with their owner, to educate the public about the great need to reduce pet population, which includes the importance of having their pets spayed and neutered, and to further the cause for humane and responsible pet ownership, and to provide a low-cost spay-neuter clinic for people who are unable to afford to spay or neuter their pets otherwise. SPCA PetSnap of Montgomery County encourages you to think adoption first. You can contact us at www.spcaofmc.com.
This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor, welcoming you back to the Weekly Business Hour. And as promised, in the studio today, we have a special guest, Sergio Martinez, the owner of Sergio's Landscaping. Welcome, Sergio, to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
Well, we're glad to have you. This is what I really enjoy. I love small business, and I don't know how a lot of people define that different ways, but to me, small business is anybody that's under, say, 500 employees or maybe 1,000. There's lots of them out there, and I would assume that you would classify your business as a small business.
Yes, we classify ourselves as a small business. We count with only about 15 employees out on the field, plus the office staff.
Let me ask you something. How long have you all been in business?
We've been in business for the last 11 years.
So you started the business 11 years ago. Talk to us a little bit, or give us a little bit of your business background prior to starting the company.
Well, my business background is pretty easy. My family business has been farming. In fact, we currently have over 30 acres of grown facility in the Cleveland area. So we've been farming and been on the landscaping industry for quite a few years.
So you've actually been growing plants that you use in the business?
Yes, sir, we do.
What kind of plants do you primarily grow? Trees? What is it that you grow at the farm?
We basically grow a different variation, including shrubbery, a few trees and fruit trees, and just a little of everything that is going to grow within the area, native plants.
Now, do you supply other landscaping companies or just yours?
We supply to so many small landscaping companies, yes, sir.
Okay, so that's basically two different businesses.
That is two different businesses.
That's interesting. So your background was working in the landscaping business, but on the side of being a grower.
Exactly.
Well, that's interesting. Now, what motivated you to kind of strike out and become a landscaper?
Well, I mean, I always had a passion. You say if you love what you do, you always go and have fun. And that's basically what I do. I like to change people's properties one at a time. My main motto is I want you to enjoy your yard whenever you get home. So, I don't want you to come over and work at your house. Your house should be ready. Your lawn care is supposed to be fixed and ready for you to enjoy.
Well, let me ask you, obviously your company, and I've looked a little bit at your website, and you and I visited a little bit. What services do you provide?
Well, we actually specialize in lawn care. We do landscaping. I'm a licensed irrigator. And we also do landscaping design. We also have a landscape architect in my office that we can actually do a landscaping design if that's what you're looking for.
So you provide the service as far as lawn mowing and whatnot, and then you also will design and install the entire landscape.
Yes, sir, we do.
Now, do you do commercial work?
Yes, our business is 50% commercial and 50% residential.
Okay, is there a reason for doing both, or is that just something you struck into?
Well, actually, we trying to maintain both to the, commercial and residential. Obviously, residential is more defined. People really looking for the difference between you and your neighbors. On the other hand, commercial is barely easy. You just have to keep it clean.
Well, I was in the commercial side myself back when. That, in fact, was my first job, was working to maintain a group of shopping centers, small strip shopping centers, and I did the planning. I didn't select the plants, but I was the labor.
Okay.
So I learned, and I mowed, and I edged, and cleaned up, and it was quite an education for a 14, 16-year-old boy. Good education too.
I understand.
Well, let me ask you this. Now, your company over the last 11 years, what kind of growth have you experienced?
We actually grown on a yearly basis, especially because we've been educating ourselves. We actually send our guys for training. We got training technicians, and we have, we send our office staff also for training, in the landscaping industry. So we're not just sitting on idle. We're constantly educating ourselves.
Well, I would say that's fairly unusual, particularly for any small business with, say, 15 or 20 employees. What made you make a commitment to training? I applaud you for that.
Well, the training actually is to provide a better customer service, so on the field as well as at the office. Even whenever they answer the phone, we're looking for the smiling faces. And actually, out on the field, we want to make sure our lawn care providers or lawn care technicians, they know what they're doing. It's not about just mowing the lawn. It's about how you're going to mow the lawn.
That's interesting. I think if most people who hire lawn service, particularly in a residential environment, wouldn't give that a second thought. So is that normal in the industry, or does that make you unique?
Well, what it makes us unique is the first interview. Whenever we're the homeowners, we actually introduce ourselves and let them know exactly what we're going to be doing on their property and what we're expecting from us. We also introduce to our crew members, let them know what they're going to do, and we're trying to do the best job as we can. Customer service, that's the main thing.
Now, what are your secrets to good customer service?
Customer service is experience, knowledge, and education. That has been, the big part of it, the knowledge that I have on the background and in the landscaping industry.
And the education is obviously something that you're providing to your employees. So again, I applaud you for that. That's an interesting background. On the commercial side, what is the secret to serving commercial accounts?
Well, commercial accounts actually, same thing. It's actually have the right equipment to do commercial accounts. We have to have bigger mowers, more people, and actually provide the best you can.
Do you do a lot of commercial landscaping work? I mean, where you landscape new properties or re-landscape existing properties?
Yeah, actually, we do landscaping from the ground up. Commercial here in the City of Com Road, you have to be licensed to do landscaping, and we actually provide landscaping services from the ground up. We can design your landscape and we can install it for you as well.
What part of the business, if I can venture, and you don't have to answer this if you don't, what part of the business, though, do you really enjoy the most personally?
Well, honestly, I love what I do, and every piece of it is very important for me. However, the landscaping is probably one of my main motivations because I want to make sure I break your expectations whenever it comes to the landscaping. You probably have something pictured on your mind on how your landscape is going to look, but I want to make sure it's going to be even better than that.
Well, let me ask you, and one of the things, and I think you and I talked about this on a previous occasion, one of the things that we read a lot, really outside of Texas, but I think it's going to be coming to Texas, and it is already here, is that when we do a landscaping project, whether it be commercial or even residential, that we plant the type of plant material trees that are native to the area so they don't require as much fertilization, don't require as much water. Do you see people talking to you about that now?
Well, yes, we do. And a part of my experience is to educate homeowners that they need to plant more native plants than whatever you buy at the large nurseries, because everything has been grown in protected environment. So they can control the heat, they control the water. And whenever you put it on your property, everything goes on shock because you cannot control your environment. And we actually educate in what plants are native for the area, and they're kind of drought tolerant. And we also been getting educated on water conservation as well, since we're licensed irrigators.
Do you see that becoming a big push in the next 5 to 10 years in Texas to reduce our water that's committed to landscaping, in other words, irrigation? Do you think that's going to become somewhat either mandatory or, what are your feelings about that?
Well, actually, it has been mandatory for the last couple of years. In fact, I was part of the City of Conroe Wise Guys program. I was one of the licensed irrigators to evaluate homeowner irrigation systems. And it has been, during the drought, we actually got mandatory to water only once or twice a week, depends on the drought.
Well, that makes it difficult for some plant material to survive, doesn't it?
Exactly, and that's why we have to be wise and, to choose what type of plants you want.
Right. And I think a lot of people miss that. I think they put in plants, like you say, from sources that what you're getting is not native. And being not native doesn't necessarily mean what you find in the forest or the woods, but plants that have been grown here locally that are tolerant to the heat that we all know we have in the summer, as well as the water. But right now, you're right. I saw on the news last night we're potentially, of course, this is the weather people talking, potentially going to face another drought this summer.
Well, and that's what we're trying to, for instance, whenever we design a new irrigation design, I try to do as best as I can to be water conservation of the state and city codes.
Well, it's very interesting. My wife opened our water bill yesterday at home, and her eyes about popped out, and she says, gosh, our bill is half of what it normally is. And she says either one or two things have happened. Either you quit watering, which I had because we'd had a lot of rain, and I manually, even though we have an automated system, try to cut it back. Or our son quit taking long showers. We didn't know which one, but she said it's the lowest bill she's seen in 5 years. So
I understand. Well, we encourage people to turn off their irrigation system during the winter months. In fact, right now we only can be watering just once a week. Okay. It depends on the plants that you had up there. And if you have an automatic irrigation system, you can always turn different stations on, not the whole system. You can only turn one station on, just whatever you require water.
Right.
So
you got to manage it, and it is a good tool, because I've got a simple one, and I do have different times and different days and whatever, and then I cut it back to the 50% or even further. So,
well, technology has come up a long ways. We actually installed irrigation system that we can manage the irrigation system from our computer, so we can actually give more water to your plants, on different sections of it. We can turn it off, turn it on. It's amazing.
Let me ask you this question. I've done a lot of reading, and I used to be involved in real estate business, as I said, and mowing lawns, and I worked my way through the industry and built buildings and did things all the way up to, and sold them eventually. So I learned a lot about trying to make a building attractive to not only tenants but potential buyers. Do you find generally people under budget for their landscaping, either at home or in in the commercial side?
Well, we do work with the different realtors, and we have what it calls make ready, curb appeal. That's one of the first presentation. That's when it's going to sell the house. 30% what it takes from people to make a decision to buy a house is the curb appeal, and we work with a lot of in order to have a good presentable curb appeal.
Well, let me ask you this: can you offer our listeners any kind of guidance on what they should spend as a percentage of the house's value, or when they're putting in their landscaping?
Well, it depends on the property, and actually, what I tell everybody is like, whenever you put a landscaping, you get 100% of your money back on it. So the better it looks, that's how much you're going to get back of it.
Well, I think that's excellent guidance, and I appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Sergio of Sergio's Landscaping. We're going to take a short break, and I encourage you to stay with us, and we'll be talking more with him in the next segment about the basic challenges of being in his business. So please stay with us.
Hello, this is Dennis Nelson, inviting you to come with me through the doorway of imagination and into the theater of the mind. The Players Theater Company Old Time Radio Hour presents a play every Saturday night at 7 p.m. on Lone Star Internet Radio. Be it drama or comedy, thriller or love story, every exciting episode is carefully chosen straight from the golden age of radio and performed live by talented actors, musicians, and sound effects crew. Every sound you hear will be 100% live and homemade. Anything can happen. So join us, please, every Saturday night at 7 p.m. for the Players Theater Company Old Time Radio Hour, right here on Lone Star Internet Radio.
This is Holly Price, Events Manager with Children's Cancer Recovery Foundation. The foundation assists children under age 18 and their families who are facing the hardships of a cancer diagnosis. Our mission focuses on improving the mental, social, and emotional well-being of these families while helping to minimize the devastation that cancer can cause. Located in the Woodlands, Texas, we support families who often face financial difficulties through our Helping Hands Fund. The Helping Hands Fund provides emergency bridge payments directly to the utility companies and landlords, ensuring that each child has a warm, safe place to call home while recovering from cancer. For more information, you can contact us directly at 713-389-5544. You can also check out our upcoming events or make a donation by visiting our website at www.childrenscancerrecovery.org.
Welcome back to the Weekly Business Hour. This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor. And I'm in the studio this morning visiting with Sergio Martinez of Sergio's Landscaping. I've learned a lot about landscaping business in our last segment, and I'd like to switch gears right now if we can, Sergio, and let's just talk about landscaping as a business. You're a businessman. You've been in business for 11 years, so you've probably had a lot of good experience to share with our listeners. My first question is, and I always love this one, what's the biggest daily challenge for you in your business?
Well, the biggest challenge, I would say, I don't know, honestly. I don't think I have a challenge. I love what I do. I love what I do, and I wake up every morning ready to go to work.
Well, let me ask you this. I know that common sense would tell one that labor's a big part of what you do. So you have those 15 folks that work for you. That's a big part of your business as far as actually running the business day to day. What do you do to keep them productive?
Well, we motivate. We give them bonuses. We go all different things. We send their families out on vacations. So we motivate our employees in order to keep good employees.
And what other things? Vacations, bonuses, what on a day-to-day basis? Anything particular?
No, we just treat them with respect. I mean, every one of them, most of the employees out there, they've been working for us for quite a few years. So we don't do a lot of swapping. We don't hire and fire a lot of people. Most of us, we train them properly, and therefore they're staying there.
Now, do you have a particular hiring process you follow when you have to hire?
Yeah, well, definitely. They have to come by the office, and we're trying to check their background. What kind of background education do they have, or what kind of experience do they have? They're willing to be on train or not.
So you do an evaluation. Do you do all the hiring, or do you have someone help you?
We got actually a team of people that actually go through a different process of it. It's not just one person. We got 2 or 3 people that are actually going to interview them before they get hired.
So if I applied for a job, make sure I understand, I actually have to go through 2 or 3 interviews before I'm going to get that job.
Well, most of the time it's only 2 interviews.
2 interviews?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I applaud that process, because in the work I do with my clients, something I learned years ago in my business is that if I can put at least 2 sets of eyes and ears and conversation on somebody, the chance of making a right decision for both the person being hired and for the company, it goes up, as I was taught in training, up to 95% versus just one person talking to them and evaluating them. So multi-levels like that, I think, I applaud you for that practice. That's a great practice to have in your business. If you could start your business again from scratch, go back 11, 12 years ago, obviously you had the background, which is good, because a lot of people start businesses, they don't necessarily have a lot of background in that area, and they just decide to go do it. So you had an advantage there. What would you do differently to looking back to when you started that you actually did, if anything?
Well, actually, if I were to do something different, I would probably educate myself a little faster than what I've done, in the last few years. Anybody can mow a lawn, but not anybody can know what is wrong with the lawn. So I had to take a lot of landscape classes by the Texas Department of Agriculture, as well as become a licensed irrigator. So I would, encourage anybody that wants to be in the landscaping industry to educate themselves.
So what you're kind of falling back on something I said in the tips and news this morning, is getting education and knowledge, and so when you start a business, I guess what I hear you saying is to learn as much as you can about the industry and be prepared.
Exactly, and define your company from the rest of it. Our customer service is amazing. Our professionalism, that's what makes us apart from the rest of the group.
Well, and it sounds like based on the way you've progressed through your company, your professionalism is growing all the time.
Yeah, in fact, we're a pretty settled company. It's pretty hard for you to find any landscaping company that actually has an office. We actually have freestanding office where you can come over, review your landscaping designs, or even your irrigation designs, or even your lawn care contract.
So you have certain things that set you apart from everyone else. One of them would be your office. What are some other things?
Well, we got a really friendly staff that is going to be answering your phone call every time you call. We got different people at the office, and we try to answer as many questions as you might have.
Let me ask you this. One of the things I found difficult when I did basically not so much landscaping but more maintenance of, as I mentioned, mowing and whatnot, was scheduling, because the weather in Texas, as we all know, can be unpredictable. You get a lot of rain, you get rain days, but as a maintenance person, that doesn't mean anything to your customer. They expect their location to look right. How do you deal with all the scheduling challenges?
Well, actually, I got an amazing team at the office. I mean, they're in charge to schedule everything, to make phone calls. In fact, we got managers to go around out on the field, see which properties I need to be maintained right away, and we're trying to catch up as best as we can on the rainy days.
That's always a challenge, though, isn't it?
It is a big challenge on, some time, but
when the drought's here, it's not so bad, right?
Whenever the drought here, it's not so bad. Yeah.
Kind of a silver lining for a few people in that regard.
Exactly.
That's interesting. If someone was thinking of starting a new business today, any business, again, you've had the experience of starting a business, and a business I feel is, from what I've seen, is very successful. What advice would you give someone who is thinking about starting their own business?
Just do something that you love to do. Something that you're going to get up and say, man, I love to do this. It's not about how much money you make. It's about how you love to do it. And eventually, financially, you're going to be rewarded.
The passion thing is big, isn't it?
It is. It is, actually. It's a big motivation for me.
Well, I think it's a motivation, like you say, because every business, I assume yours, has ups and downs, or new things that happen, things you can't foresee, can't plan. And as long as you have that passion burning in your heart, you can get through them. Would you feel that's a fair statement?
That is a great statement, and you gotta say your team of players, like you say earlier. You have to have a good support around you.
Yeah, I think building that staff around you obviously is another key thing. That's interesting. Let me ask you something. Now, you've come 11 years. You've paid your dues I'm sure you mentioned that, if you started again, you might have changed a few things. But now at 11 years and you look out in front of you 3 to 5 years, where do you see your company?
Well, actually, our company is growing on the yearly basis. It's a blessing. I see one, also become the larger landscaping company in Montgomery County, which I think we're already there.
So at this point, you already think you're the largest company based here in Montgomery County?
I believe we are.
That's interesting. What's the advantage of being the largest one?
Actually, it's not any advantage. That means that we're doing something good, providing great customer service.
In fact, do you see any real challenges in adding additional employees, managing those people?
Well, it is a challenge if you're not properly set up, or service, or office staff is pretty well educated to add some more people and manage them themselves as well.
Right. It sounds like you depend upon your staff quite a bit. Is that true?
I do depend around everybody. I can't do everything by myself. In fact, you were mentioning something earlier about how we can keep up with scheduling. All our service trucks are equipped with GPS systems, so we know exactly where the guys are and how long do they take on each property. So that's how we can manage. We just send them a text and tell them we need to go a different route or which routes are closer to it.
Well, that's interesting. That you are on the leading edge for that, and particularly with a company that I would call a small business for sure. But that's interesting technology. How long have you had that installed?
We've had it for the last 2 years.
And has it really made a difference?
It makes a tremendously difference, yes.
How many vehicles do you put on the road each day, roughly?
We have 8 trucks out on the road.
So you're tracking 8 different crews all over the county?
Yes, sir.
At any given time?
Yes, sir.
Boy, I really like that. You're one of the best guests I've had as far as you seem to really be hitting on all cylinders. And I've had a lot of wonderful people, a lot of great business people in their industries on here. And even though some people would say landscaping, lawn mowing, there's lots of guys who do that. They got a truck, a lawnmower, they're doing it. But you're doing it. You're running it like a real business, and I think people need to hear that.
Well, the landscaping business is a multi-million-dollar business. So I really, encourage anybody to open any type of business. And it's going to be a lot of competition no matter what kind of business you open. It's just what kind of effort you're going to put into it.
Well, and I think the other thing in fact, years ago I was involved, but a lot of folks don't realize how much landscaping cost and the investment. I mean, an irrigation system, they possibly know that in a residential setting, and a few people know in a commercial setting. But like yesterday, my wife and I went and bought some plants, and she keeps plants in pots, and we had some mandevils, and she loves them and raises them and babies them on a daily basis like having her own child. And we lost them this winter, so she had to replace them, and they were $27, $28 for each plant. And you add that up, that's an investment. And for her, that was easy money, because I know every day she will tend to them and loves to watch them grow and whatnot. And but there's hundreds of thousands of dollars in almost everybody's yard in landscaping. And they don't, if they hire somebody with just a truck and a mower and maybe a string edger, I think they're doing a disservice to themselves.
Well, actually, we find out a lot of people actually hurt the landscape, and whatever you have in there, we actually care for. We can fertilize your landscaping. It's about protecting your investment.
Right, and it's an investment in a home. And I've heard or read numbers that you should, when you build a home or you have a home, 5% or more of the value of that home should be in landscaping. And like you say, it's such an important factor when you value your home to sell it or whatnot, the curb appeal that you mentioned. And I think that's one of probably the biggest challenges I would see as an outsider to what you do, is particularly on the residential side, is selling professionalism, in a sense, how important the service is that you're providing, how very important. And I think it would be my best guess that they overlook how important it really is.
Well, my job has been to educate the homeowners. Educate them, what does the landscaping mean to your property? What is it that you like? Your investment, how to protect your investment in the landscaping.
And a lot of times, if they don't realize, they may have $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 or more in landscaping, particularly if they bought a home that was existing. And if they lose it in a storm or in a drought, then they really begin to understand. But most folks, I don't think, really get that.
Well, you'll be surprised. Most of the landscape gets lost actually on the lack of care. Not so much on the drought, not much on the storms, but the lack of care. The person you have maintaining your property, that's how you lost a lot of the landscaping.
Well, that's an interesting comment. I think people need to hear that. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about another business topic, networking. This is something I think Sergio is pretty darn good at based on what I've observed, and I think he can offer you some tips and some straight-up advice. So please stick with us, and we'll be back with you shortly.
Do you ever wonder what's going on in the business community? Are you looking for ways to get plugged in? Cassandra Roshan here, Director of Membership Development with the Greater Conroe, Lake Conroe Area Chamber of Commerce, and I would like to invite you to tune in to Chamber Chat. Tune in the first Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. so you will be in the know for all Chamber happenings for the month. Each month, the Chamber offers 2 free lunch and learn sessions, a networking breakfast, business after hours, membership luncheon, as well as many other special events throughout the year. I will give you a rundown of all programs and events for the month, as well as interview our speakers and hosts of these events. So grab a cup of coffee and tune in to Chamber Chat the first Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. Chat with you then.
Hi, I'm Joyce with the Corner Pub in downtown Conroe. We're located at the corner of Simonton and North Main, just across the street from the courthouse. The week starts off Monday with open mic hosted by Alan, and Tuesday nights open mic hosted by Jeremy Bankhead. And on Thursday evening, McFarland Jams. There's nightly drink specials available every night, all night. And don't forget, live entertainment every weekend. To see a full list of events, visit our website at thecornerpubinconroe.com. So come join us at the Corner Pub, where the deli is open late.
This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor, welcoming you back to our final segment today of the Weekly Business Hour. And we've been visiting with Sergio of Sergio's Landscaping. I hope that you have found today's visit beneficial. I have. Understanding a little bit more about a particular industry, the landscaping, as it relates to being a business. And as I've said several times during the hour, Sergio, I applaud you. You obviously have grabbed the business by the horns, and you have really built quite an enterprise, in my opinion, of it. And I wanted to take the final segment, if we could today, and talk about networking. I first met you in a sense at a networking event. It was the Greater Conroe Chamber of Commerce networking. We just heard at the break Cassandra talking about membership. Talk to us about networking a little bit, and what type of networking do you primarily involve yourself in?
Well, I'm actually a member from different networking groups. One would be the Chamber of Commerce, the Lions Club, to help the community, MC Pros, and BNI.
Well, let's talk about those groups, because one of the things when I advise my clients about getting out, especially when they're smaller or businesses just starting, I'm an advocate of networking. I think it's misunderstood a lot of times what it is, and I think folks either over or under invest their time in it. And let's talk about it, because that's a diverse group that you've picked there, in my opinion, different types of networking groups. BNI, we'll start at the back. Tell us a little bit about how BNI is different, in your opinion, than the other groups you're involved in.
Well, BNI is really different because they only accept one profession for every chair that is in there. So there's only one landscaping group on my group. So there's no other landscaper in there. And the way that works is that we refer to each other. We always look at how we can help the other person. It's not how can we help ourselves. And therefore, the other people are going to help you as well.
My understanding from BNI, and I personally have not been in a BNI group, but I've mentored people who have been in BNI groups. In fact, one individual started a chapter, if you will, or a group, and I work with him on that as far as guiding him on some questions he had. I understand there's a great deal of accountability as well in BNI.
Yeah, you are required to attend the meetings. It's required. It's required for you to give referrals. It's required for you to go to the networking groups. It's required for you to know exactly what your other person in your group is actually good out of it. What does he do? How can you help him? It's about knowing each other.
Well, one of the things that I recommend to people when I'm asked, and again, keeping in mind I've never been a member, but I've known and had clients that are members and try to learn about the group and have been online to their website and talked to people involved, was that B&I to me is a good training ground for networking because of the accountability. They also account the dollars of business. They teach you a lot of basics. Is that been your impression?
Yeah, definitely. They teach you a lot of basics on how network, the accountability. He actually introduced you into the networking world. It's a great training tool.
Now, the second group, I believe, or the third one that you mentioned was MC Pro.
Yes, MC Pro is every networking group is actually of local business owners, and you just have to go up there and tell them, hey, this is who I am, and this is what I do, and this is what I'm looking for, and how can we help each other.
Now, how often do they meet, or what are the requirements of that group?
Well, in BNI, we actually meet every Tuesday morning at Dositos, 7 o'clock. MC Pros is every Tuesday at lunch at Wild Ginger. And that's what we do on a weekly basis.
Now, is there any accountability, if you will, direct accountability with MC Pro?
Not that I know on MC Pros.
So it's basically a bunch of like-minded people that get together and try to help each other by referring business.
Exactly.
And the other group you mentioned was the Lions Club, which I've learned a lot about the Lions Club. The Lions Club here, I believe, in the Conroe area, the Noon Lions Club is one of the largest in the country, I believe.
Yes, sir, we are. In fact, I'm actually one of the newest members. I've been a member only for 6 months, I believe.
And what have you taken away? What's different about that group from your perspective?
The different from the perspective is that actually it's about how can you help your community. I grew up in Conroe. I got kids in Conroe. So how we can make a Conroe a better city to grow kids, or how can we help our community?
So the Lions Club really is, from my understanding and what I hear you describing, is more of a service organization, a community service organization. But because you come together, you intend to meet people that you possibly would do business with.
Yeah, definitely. They're always, same thing. We know what you do. They know what you do. So they always need your services as well.
Right. Let me ask you, when you go to one of that's a weekly meeting?
That's a weekly meeting.
About how many people show up at that meeting?
I would say close to 100 people.
100 people. That's a big group.
It is a big group.
Big group. Now, what was the last one you mentioned? Chamber of Commerce?
Chamber of Commerce.
That's a networking organization, isn't it?
That's an amazing networking organization.
Well, share what you get from that group and what makes it different.
Well, it's basically everyone that I mentioned is pretty close to the same in order because it's a bunch of local owners, local business owners that we're trying to help each other. The chamber kind of give you exposure, a little more exposure on all the new person that's moving into the Conroe area. Most of the new commercial properties or commercial owners are going to go to the chamber to look for businesses. And we had quite a bit of referrals from there.
Now, the chamber meetings, I'm a member of the Greater Conroe Chamber. We meet we have 2 or 3 networking opportunities, strictly networking opportunities, breakfast and a couple evening opportunities, and those are direct networking. Plus, there's a lot of other meetings and opportunities as well.
Every one of the networks help a little bit. You get one referral from one each one of them. Is how many can you attend? And, the more consistent you are on all the networking, obviously you're going to get more referrals, get more exposure.
So this is part of your business process, is that right?
I'm actually the face of the company, so I'm the one actually doing most of the networking. Yes.
So you're out generating the new business, so to speak.
Yes, we're trying to, get some more business.
Let me ask you this, and I noticed when we met next door, as I do with all my guests prior to the show at the Conroe Coffee, there was a table of, I think, 4 ladies were having some kind of meeting or whatnot, and you struck up a conversation. You ended up handing out some business cards. What was that a result of?
Well, that results from the Chamber of Commerce. Some of that result from MC Pros. That's what I said. You never know who you're going to run into.
I mean, you had just kind of a spur-of-the-moment networking thing going there from my observation.
Exactly. And, it doesn't take a one time. It's a commitment that you go to different meetings, constantly. So you start knowing people. So you'd be surprised every time I walk to a restaurant how many people I know.
Well, and I think that's one of the measures of knowing that your networking is working, is that when you walk into a public place like that people know you. And then in turn, I assume since you handed some cards out, you were introduced to people you didn't know.
Exactly.
So all of a sudden, you've got what I call spur-of-the-moment networking going on, which, again, it's to me a measurement of how well your networking program must be working for you.
It has been working great. We actually get to meet a lot of people every day. You were mentioned earlier about the telephone. Telephone runs off the wall all the time. I mean, we're very blessed.
Well, let me ask you this now. You're at the top. You're the face of the company. Are you training anybody to follow in your shoes or to help you as the company grows?
Yes, we got 2 different people that are in training that actually go meet, shake hands with homeowners, telling this is who we are, this is what we do, and if you have a problem, please give us a call.
Okay. Now, do either one of them do any networking at all yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
They're still in the process of training.
Okay, I got you. You like to be the guy out front, right?
Yeah, this is going to be my job.
Well, I hear you, and I think that's smart. You put the experience and the age and maturity out front, and you've got sounds like a good office staff and crew and management running the day-to-day. How much of the day do you spend, though, checking back, or what is your process for making sure the work's getting done properly?
Well, I mean, we have a good system. The office actually arrange all our scheduling for me, the managers, and they just send us on different routes. And it's a scheduling process.
Do you ever find yourself on a job site anymore?
Definitely. I love what I do, and sometimes I just start digging or do whatever, because that's what I love to do.
So you do have a process where you personally go out and check on job sites yourself just to check?
Yeah, well, I like the landscaping part of it. If I'm going to be working a really large landscaping company, I want to make sure I'm there.
Well, it sounds like the actual work itself is sort of a break for you.
Definitely.
Have some fun, if you will.
Yes, it is.
I hear you. That's great. Well, let me ask you this, that in moving forward with your company, your building staff, your training, you've got 2 folks you're training to follow in your shoes, so to speak. What do you think will be the biggest challenge over the next 5 years to most businesses, though, as far as trying to grow their businesses? What do you see out there as the biggest challenge, really, to any business, besides the phone that I mentioned earlier today?
Exactly. Well, I believe one of the biggest challenges is economy. We had a pretty unstable economy, so that's one of the biggest challenges. We don't know what the market's going to do tomorrow. But, just like I tell the folks, regardless of the economy, the grass is still growing.
I like that. Well, that's one thing we're blessed with here in Montgomery County from what I've learned in being here for the last year or two is that the projections on growth are phenomenal for beyond the Woodlands itself. I mean, the Woodlands is a phenomenal story. But the rest of the county, particularly in the northern part of the county, have some real growth potential for new people, new businesses. It's fantastic. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we have a large commercial properties moving into the area with, thousands of employees. So there's going to be a lot of work for every industry out there.
I absolutely believe that as well. Sergio, I can't thank you enough for taking the time and coming and joining us on the program today. I really feel like I'm back to my roots talking to a fellow small business person and some of the things. And again, I applaud you for some of the processes and some of the ways you've taken on to run your business. If people wanted to contact you and talk about their landscaping or landscaping service, tell the audience how they can best get a hold of you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation, Rick. I mean, it's been an amazing experience. How the people can get a hold of us, it's sergioslandscaping.com. They can go onto the website and see the different services that we provide, or they can call our office at 936-788-1219.
Would you give us that phone number one more time?
Sure, 936-788-1219.
Thank you very much. And as we close our show, I want to give a reminder to our audience today. Remember to tune in this coming Saturday at 7 p.m. to hear the Players Theater Company Old Time Radio Hour. This week it'll be a replay of their latest production, The Green Hornet, The Ghost Who Talked Too Much. And this is Rick Schissler, Silver Fox Advisor, thanking you for joining us this week on the Weekly Business Hour and encouraging you to tune in next week at 11 o'clock when we'll have another great show for you. In the meantime, stay tuned to Lone Star Internet Radio. Check out our website at www.irlonestar.com, and we'll see you next week, partner.
Hey everyone, this is Tina, your host from Retro Saturdays. I wanted to invite you to visit the Lone Star Studios here in downtown Conroe, Texas. We're all volunteers here, and we need your help in serving the Montgomery County area. Radio media is a fun field to be in. Lone Star Internet Radio serves Montgomery County with news, current events, local programming, and of course, music. If you are interested in volunteering and sharing your talents in media, go to irlonestar.com and let us hear from you. Lone Star Internet Radio, serving Montgomery County from the heart of downtown Conroe.